welcome everyone this morning to our Acumatica continuing education series on for Acumatica on Odata. This morning we'll be going to go show you how to get information. Instead of pushing data into Excel, we're going to show you how to go into Excel and pull data out from Acumatica real time, and how to keep those links updated. It's a pretty cool subject, and when we were doing this, there's some decent stuff out there on the web, but we thought that we would really put it together in a really nice format and help you when you get back to your own systems be able to do this on your own. So we'll start off with a quick PowerPoint, and then we're going to actually get into the actual process of doing it step by step along the way. If you have any questions along the way, sorry, I'm trying to hit the right. If you have any questions along the way, please use the questions feature within the GoToWebinar. All the phone lines are muted due to the number of people we have on the call. And again, this should be about 30 minutes. So there's 3 steps of setting up Odata within your system. Now, let me start off by saying that Odata is already set up in your system, but there's 3 steps in order to use it. So there's nothing that needs to be installed. There's no licensing. Everything's ready for you to go at this point here. So the first step is setting up your generic inquiries. And we'll talk about those a little bit more in a second. The second thing is to make sure you have the right connection string. I will tell you this is the #1 issue why people can't get it to work. It's understanding your connection string, and we'll talk about that in detail. And then the last step is obviously connecting your Excel to Acumatica using Odata. And we'll talk about the versions of Excel you should use, but there is nothing you need to install on your machine or within Excel at this point. So the first thing is you have to set up your generic inquiries. And what is a generic inquiry? So within Acumatica, whenever we create a table, we usually use something called a generic inquiry. That allows us to combine tables together in order to give you a amount of data, return data to you. And that is done through generic inquiry. You can add those to your menus. You can add those to your dashboards. Generic inquiries are also used in your lookup. So if you look up a list of sales orders or customers, that's also done by generic inquiry. So if there are fields in there that you would like to add, those can be modified, but these can also be modified for creating your own basically reports in the system. There is one important field in there, and that is something called, over here you'll see it says expose to Odata. So by default that is not turned on. It's only turned on a few small little queries in the system, but by default this is not turned on. So you want to make sure you turn those on for those generic inquiries that you want. Couple pieces of note, or one other note that's really important. If you ever create your own generic inquiries, put a little underscore at the end of it and put your initials, or that maybe your company code or company name, something that you can identify that these have been customized or custom. They're not out of the box. Usually when we create our own, we'll put an underscore NAW for net at work. That way we know that these are the ones that we created. And so again, during upgrades, during any type of stuff, we make sure that we know what is stock versus what has been added. The second thing that you have to worry about is your connection string. And so there's 2 parts to the connection string. First of all is the server name. So you'll see in my server name, and I've got it highlighted here, my server name, I am not hosted, my Acumatica is not hosted by Acumatica because we have multiple tenant or multiple instances in their installations. So you'll see that mine is https://services.useast.skytap.com, a port number, and then I've got a little additional part on that URL. When you first log in, basically take anything from before the word frames, what I have highlighted here, and this is your first part of your connection string. So you want to make sure you have that copied and pasted maybe to a notepad or to something else. The second part is your tenant name. So I would tell you that mostly everyone on this call has multiple tenants. When you log in, on the lower right-hand corner here, you'll notice that I have my sales demo tenant. and that's the name of the company or the installation that I'm connecting to. That's going to be your second part of your connection string, and you need to have that information. Now, there are a little bit of challenges if you have spaces in there, and that's one of the things that probably most people get tripped up on. So if mine was actually said sales space demo, URLs do not like spaces, and we'll talk about how you need to fix that in a second. So, in fact, it's on the next slide here. So my connection string for Odata is that I took my Acumatica website, which we pointed out here. You put the word Odata at the end of it, ODATA, and then you put the word sales demo. So again, if we have a space in there, sales demo, you replace the blank with a % and a 20. Yes, the web was developed by a bunch of programmers. Don't know how they came up with that, but again, you put the % and the word and 20, and that's your substitution for a space. So if I had sales space demo space LLC, I would put sales %20 demo %20 LLC. So you put it that you just use that %20 in lieu of any space you have. Hopefully that makes sense. And what's important is that you could actually test this URL, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. You could test that URL ahead of time to make sure that it's going to connect directly to in Excel. Then, so as you can see here, yes, we tested it, and you should get back a result saying, hey, it works. Now, when you do this, it will make you'll get a little login within your Internet Explorer saying, please log in. This is your Acumatica login and password for that tenant. Remember, you can have different usernames and passwords for different tenants. So just make sure that when you get that, if you get a little login, make sure that you put in your username and password for your Acumatica tenant. Last step is connecting Excel to Acumatica. And the way that you do that is that you go into Excel, and then you go to Get Data, and you say From Other Sources, and you select an OData feed. Now, we highly recommend, and this is not at work, we highly recommend that you use Excel 2016 and higher. So that it's 2016, that's 2019, that's also Office 365. Why do we say that? This will work on Excel 2013, but the way that Microsoft rewrote this functions, starting in 2016, they started moving over to something called .NET as their programming behind Microsoft Excel and some of the features, and it's much more robust, it's quicker, but more importantly too, if you do something on Excel 2016, it will not work on an Excel 2013 installation of Excel. Even though the file is compatible, the OData links connections will not work, and you'll get a bunch of error messages. And the same thing will happen if you're on 2013 and you go to 2016. So please stay on 2016 and higher. Make sure that's installed. 2016 is only 7 years old now, so it is highly recommended that you go to a more current version of Excel for this. But there is nothing that you need to install. However, you might once in a while get a message saying that if you've never done this before, saying this feature is not installed in Excel, do you wish to install it? You say yes, and it should install itself automatically, and then at that point you now have it. So, but there's nothing you need to license. You might not have installed all the features you needed to with Excel, but this is it's a quick one-time only fix. When you do the OData, again, you will be prompted for a username and password, so you'll get this little OData thing. This is where it's really great to just copy paste the URL directly into the screen when you get it, and it'll ask you for a username and password. Make sure you click on something called Basic Authentication, and again, put in your Acumatica username and password. And then what you'll get is a list of all the generic inquiries that have been exposed to OData. So this is a copy from my system. I've got some ones out there like invoiced items, which is the one we're going to be using today. But you'll see some other ones like my business intelligence ones, my dashboard ones, my Valexio reports. And what you do is you select which way you want, and you click on load in the lower right-hand corner, and that will bring the data in at that point. And once it's in there, it will bring it into this format. You can now do all your Excel amazing features such as pivot tables and queries and all the fun stuff you normally want to do. But what's nice is that if someone goes into Acumatica and changes a record or adds a new record, in order to update your Excel spreadsheet, all you have to do is click on the famous refresh button. It will go out and get all the updated data at that point. Depending upon the number of records, this could take a few minutes. So it just depends upon how big your table is. So it might take a few minutes to update if it's a lot of records, a lot of fields that it's bringing down from the Acumatica cloud. And again, one important thing to point out is that this does not make a difference if you're hosted by Acumatica, if you have the Acumatica installed locally. This is the whole process is identical. One other thing, if you are installed locally, make sure that you're running HTTPS. Having an SSL certificate is required for this. So, Jason, any questions before we?
Yes, we had a question come in that said 2 tables, question mark. It's how can you combine data from 2 tables?
Great question. So the way that you can, so that is done through the generic inquiry. Through the generic inquiry, that's when you will connect 2 tables. So let's go into this and have a little bit of fun here. For those who think queries and all that stuff are fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm in my Acumatica. In my local installation here, I'm going to go to my customization and go to generic inquiries. Otherwise, I always like typing the word generic up top and it finds it a lot faster. So I go into my generic inquiry. And what I'm going to do is that in my generic inquiry, one of the things that I think I added to mine was exposed to Odata. So that was a little check mark that I added to mine. So I could say, show me everything that's been exposed to the Odata. But I'm going to choose the one that's called invoiced items. And to answer the question thoroughly now, notice that I have multiple tables here. I'm linking my invoice table to my transaction table, to my customer table, to my address table, to my invoice, my items table. And what you end up doing is you create these relationships here. You know, this table is linked to this based upon this field here. This table and this table are linked to the linked together based upon these fields. If you have questions regarding this, please contact us here at Net@Work. Our team is very good about creating these links. And in fact, one of the new features that's coming out in the newer version of Acumatica 2020 R2, which is going to be released next month, note on that, they are adding a feature to help you link the tables together better. That has been the number one of the highest ranking questions that people at Acumatica get is, how do I link these 2 tables together? So they've created a little program or tool to help link those together in the new release, and we're very excited about that. Finishing on here, so under the results grid, this is where you tell it which columns you want in your lookups or in your report or in the return values that you're getting. And again, this is where you can add additional columns if you wanted to very easily. Again, this is the goal of today is not to go into generic inquiry training. The last thing that I will make sure again is exposed to the Odata. There is also exposed to mobile. So those who have the mobile device, when we did the talked about the mobile device that you get with Acumatica, again, that's part of your subscription. You can expose these inquiries to your mobile device and look at this information on your tablet, on your phone, using the Acumatica app. Perfect. So with that, again, I know my URL is based upon this, and what I'm going to do is that I copied the whole URL here where I have Odata and I have my tenant name, and I'm opening up another tab and I'm going to hit enter here. I wanted to simply make sure this comes up, and voila, it does. And so at this point here, you can see that I've got all my tables. If for any reason this does not look right, if I put in sales demo, or I'll just do that, I'll hit my enter. You'll notice that it doesn't even work because that it does not exist. So if you keep on getting this, don't keep on hitting enter. You could actually possibly lock yourself out. That obviously is not working. My URL does not work. If you put in something else, you know, you'll definitely know it. So now I messed up there. So let's change that back to an O, and now we hit OK, and there. That's so long as we get this is perfect. So the last step is going into Excel. So got my Excel loaded here, and I've got my data here. Now, I do have, by the way, a tab called Acumatica. This is a third-party add-on called Valexio that does financial reporting. So this is not required. This is just on my Excel, and it has no bearing upon what we're doing today. If I go into my data here at this point, and I'm going to say get data from other sources and choose my Odata at this point here. Loads up the first time. You choose basic authentication. You put your URL into there, and you say, okay, now mine's got that cached in my system. I've got it cached, so I only have to enter it one time. Now, what's nice is that you do have the ability to say select multiple items. Do not recommend that. Do your linking directly in the generic inquiry. It's much better to do it that way. But let's take this, for example, let's continue on here. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's take our invoiced items. At this point here, it brings over a subset of the data. So notice that it says the data preview has been truncated due to size limits. But it's bringing over, it looks like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I could do some data transformations. I can also change the way that it loads. But what I'm just going to simply do is click on load at this point here, and it goes out. And it's the first time it takes the longest, so it's bringing all the records in from my server. Now again, this is a local server, so it's not this is not a production environment like Acumatica, so it takes a little bit longer. But it brought all the records in, and it looks like actually, yep, all of it loaded, so everything's good. So at this point here, I can start doing whatever I want. I can start doing my filtering because it brings it into that filter. I can start doing pivot tables. I can start doing queries. But what's nice is I've got everything that people have ordered, so I can start looking at dates, and I can start creating charts and graphs and all that fun stuff. Now that that's been loaded at this point here, really quick, if I went to here and I said refresh or refresh all, I'm just going to simply click on my refresh. What it's going to do is right down here, it will say, hey, it's doing the background, and it starts bringing the data in. And again, it doesn't take very long. The second time, boom, it updates. And that's how easy it is. So you're now linking your Excel real time to here. I could also come in here and say, you know what, under sheet 2, I want to do data, get data from other sources. I'm going to choose my Odata feed. And now that I have that one in there, let's do another one. So if I had multiple tenants, I could theoretically pull in from multiple tenants into different sheets. So if you have, like, for example, and we've had these type of clients that have maybe a tenant for one type of operation and have another tenant for another operation, we can do that. At this time here, I'm just going to keep this simple. I'm just going to bring in for my one tenant. And if I just wanted to bring in my customers at this point here and hit load, that list is obviously a lot smaller. So it should populate in less than 5 seconds, which it did. And there's all my customer list. So again, you can create all these different queries. And now, because I like to keep this organized, customers.
Stuart, we have a question. It says,
yep.
Will you be able to access the Power Query editor?
The answer is yes, you can. Yes, and I'm not showing that today, but the answer is you can go into the Power Query editor. That's a great question. So you can go one step further with that. So great question there. For those who don't know what Power Query is, it is one of the coolest features that Excel has added over the last several years. Depends upon your version of Excel, but it's an amazing tool set that brings the data in and allows you to do transformations, all that fun stuff. So in fact, here, actually, let me try one more thing here. Let me do one more since someone asked from other sources, Odata. Again, keep that copy paste is really powerful. And then if I go to, let's do cases, because we got some cases in here. Load 2. If you do the Glow 2, no, that's not where I wanted to go to. I think it's if you hit transformation, that's where it, I think I had hit transformation. Let me do that one more time. If not, we'll just move on from Odata. Let's do cases and transform data. This is what you were looking for here. Sorry. So here's the Power Query. If you click on transformation, that's where it brings that up. And so this is a really cool feature within Excel for those who love Excel and have seen this before. In all essence, Excel is replacing Microsoft Access over the years, and this is one of the coolest features they've added. So hopefully that answers your question there. Any other questions that have come in, Jason?
Nope. They just thanked you and they said this is amazing.
Awesome. Perfect. It is. So again, a lot of people love Excel. Remember, accountants love Excel. So it's just a natural program they use. And this is, again, a way that you don't have to take the data from Acumatica and push it into Excel. You can basically have Excel pull it from Acumatica. And again, even though we're a cloud-based organization, company, product, it does not make a difference. So with that, if there's any other questions along the way, please let us know. If you want to copy the PowerPoint, just let us know. We'll be happy to send out the PowerPoint to help you in terms of any of that. Last but not least, I didn't have a slide on this. Next month, there is a Acumatica 2016 R2 release webinar. It usually is in person, and Acumatica goes around from city to city, between Boston and New York and Dallas and Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, and they do a roadshow once a year on the new features. Unfortunately, due to COVID and travel restrictions, this year's is all virtual, so it's going to be a little bit different than we're all used to, but it's a great way for both customers, prospects, and partners all get together to really see all the new features and hear from product management on all the things. That is slated for September 16th. If you need a copy of the link, please contact us. We'll be happy to get you registered or help get you registered on that. There is no charge, obviously. That is most important to really learn about the new product and features coming out. If you have any other questions along the way, please feel free to contact myself. Please feel free to contact Jason, who you heard answering the questions today. Jason's done a lot with generic inquiries, a lot with the Odata, so feel free to contact us. Also, feel free to follow us on our Net of Work on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Facebook. We post a lot of good information out there, so please feel free to watch this. If there's any additional trainings that you would like us to perform or hold, please let us know. We'll be continuing these on throughout the rest of the year as normal. And with that, unless there's any other questions.
We got a quick question that just came in. It says, does the advanced tab allow for SQL queries?
It's a good question there. Let me go back. I'm assuming we're talking about, are we talking about within Excel, or are we talking about within Acumatica, the generic? This right here, I'm assuming you're talking about within the Power, within Power Query. So you can do whatever you want within there.
The first step after choosing Odata.
You can. The best thing to really do is to do those within the generic. The best thing to do is do those within the generic inquiries, because then you're having the processing power is done on the server and not through the connection string. It's much faster on the server to have it within the generic inquiry, but the answer is yes, you can. You can change that around as well, as you can change the query within there.
Great.
Perfect.
Great job, Stuart.
With that, thank you. With that, we'll stay on for the next couple minutes. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I love the participation, and everyone stay safe out there and have a great day, and thank you for attending this.